Oliver, you are an investor, a founder, an author, a speaker. Were there seeds of entrepreneurship planted for you early on?
An African entrepreneur is either you are driven by poverty, you want to overcome challenges of poverty, or you are a student who come up with an innovation and set up a business, or you have a combination of both.
You served in the army, you went to Ghana to serve, and what is that experience like?
Actually, in the army, what they do first is that they break you and then they make you, and they break you first.
Getting experience, making some money, but then using your money, what's the next step? What is going through your mind to be like, this is actually what I want to do next?
There are things that people cannot take away from you. The most important advice I give to anybody is
Oliver, you are an investor, a founder, an author, a speaker, a man who wears many hats. Why do you do the work that you do?
First of all, I want to say good morning, Africa, and good morning, the world. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on the Africa CEO podcast. Without entrepreneurship, nobody gets paid, including the government, the state. So I always wanted to become an entrepreneur from the age of 9 because I know entrepreneurship plays a major role in economic development, but also addressing the issues of social use. Imagine if everybody is employed, we can be able to have economic development, but we can address the issue of social use. So that's why I become an entrepreneur.
I want to go back to your early journey. So you grew up in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
So tell me, what lessons did you learn in that environment, and what were you taught by your parents that actually shaped your beliefs and the person you are today?
I think the first one was the values. Actually, I was born in a place called Mutare, Zimbabwe. It's in the province of Manicaland. It's the third largest city in Zimbabwe. For those that know, Zimbabwe, beautiful mountains, just like Cape Town. And I was born in a village in a very, very tough environment, wearing my first pair of shoes in grade 7. And someone recently, I was at the airport and I took off my shoes and I put on the flip-flops. And the guy came to me and said, "Your feet are ugly." And I laughed about that, but anyway, he was making a joke. But my parents taught me that if you lose your values, you lose what is worth living for. And so my parents taught me values, taught me to be resilient, hard work pays off, and you don't go out with a dirty shirt even if you only have one. So my mother would say. And so there were lots of values that I've learned from that experience. To always, I'm an early bird. Waking up after 5, I'm late already. So making up my own bed, even if I'm in a hotel room, I'm making up my own bed because it's the first achievement of the day that will motivate you to do the next task. So those were some of the lessons and the values that I've learned that helped me shape my future in business, and because I can do multiple projects, multiple tasks today, and people always say I want to be like I said, just be yourself, because I think it's because of that experience. Yeah.
Okay, and were there seeds of entrepreneurship planted for you early on, and what was that environment like growing up from an entrepreneurship point of view?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of both. The first one is that I just want to describe an African entrepreneur. An African entrepreneur is either you are driven by poverty, you want to overcome challenges of poverty, or you are a student who come up with an innovation and set up a business, or you have a combination of both. Lastly, the profile of an African entrepreneur is someone that has traveled the world, and you have maybe studied or work abroad, and you learn some lessons, and you want to use that to set up a business. Mine was a combination of driven by poverty. I wanted to, I believe that we should all live in a better place, and I wanted to help my family, but also my country and continent at large. So that was one of the things that actually pushed me to become an entrepreneur. So I realized that I saw what my mom was doing and inspiring us to see hard work pays off. We're helping her and making money. I mean, I made my first entrepreneurship money when I was 9 years old. So as I say, I used to be called Mr. X because I used to go and buy eggs and I go sell them, and I was short and I was young and so forth. So it was a combination of both.
What was your mom doing?
Selling vegetables and in the street, like sells vegetables and fruits in the street. And at schools as well, like during break times, she used to go to schools as well and sell fruits and vegetables. So we used to help her. And it's a very, very informal, in South Africa, you call most of, Stellenbosch is called a village. This is not a village, this is a very smart city, it's not a village. So people call this, mine was a village, like red soil, I don't know if you've been in Nairobi, like red soil. And everything is very, very informal. We measure even fruits, we measure food products by bucket, by just weighing by buckets and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's what my mom was doing, and that was also an inspiration. And when I was in the army, my second year in the army, there was a trigger, and the trigger was my mom was embarrassed. That's what made me even more. I think that was the tipping point, because I had bullies, and I had bullies, and I also. For example, that time when I was with my mother, I hate parties by nature that are not in a contained environment. So you wouldn't see me going to Long Street, that's not me. But if in an environment that is contained. And I went to this party, Christmas dinner party, when I was 19 years old, and a lady came to my mother, she embarrassed my mother, she said, that's why you got divorced, in front of me. And I said, Mom, we're leaving. I said, don't talk to Mom like that. And she said that, I'm just joking. I said, don't joke to Mom like that. So that was the trigger point. And so when I went out, when I'm stressed, I love horse riding, either beach or ice cream. So I went to buy ice cream. My first car was a Mazda Magnum 4x4, petrol 4x4 Mazda Magnum. And we sit at the bonnet, it was hot, and we eat ice cream. I said, Mom, the whole world is going to know your last name. You don't have to do anything. So that was a very, 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 very trigger and inspiration that shaped who I am, because I never stopped. If I look, I'll be 37 in July, and if I look at what I've achieved, recently I've been appointed on 3PG group as a finance advisor board member, and I say, I'm sitting with people that are 70 years old and 60 years old, but it's just because I was resilient, and that was a major tipping point.
If I'm understanding you correctly, you went through this extremely tough environment where you had to hustle to make ends meet, support your family, support your mom. And that, through the lessons that your mom taught you, through that hard work, it actually shaped who you are today. And fast forward a bit, you served in the army, you went to Ghana to serve. And what is that experience like?
Yeah, serving the army was a bonus. By the way, you recognize that I speak a little bit faster. It's because I grew up, I couldn't speak. I used to stutter. So my grandmother used to pray for me and say, don't worry about what everybody says. You're gonna speak. So also, when I was in the army, I learned a lot how to, I was practicing how to speak well, and because I used to stutter, words don't come out, and God helped me, I can speak. So the army was a bonus. Actually in the army, what they do first is that they break you and then they make you, but they break you first. And in the army, there's no men, there's no women. So you all soldiers, by the way. And the first 3 weeks was so nice, and we used to just sit, eat, drink, make jokes, play chess. And one day on this afternoon, 3 o'clock, sun, it was almost 37 degrees, and say, we're going on a run. We're going on a run. I thought I was fit, I was strong, I was a sport person. But anyway, so the army taught me a lot of lessons. Discipline, there's a lot of discipline. And there are also lessons that I can use in business, actually. A lot of lessons I can use in business as well that I've learned. I remember one morning I was running and I was tired. And this soldier instructor, she was a lady, she said, my son, you can do it. You can do it. You're almost there. So she was, motivating me to finish the race, the task. So there's a lot of lessons that one learns in the army. You also learn, like me, I later become in the, not a special force, but it's a special program that I did on espionage. That's why I was put in the military. That's why I went there as a foreign attaché, but I was actually going there to spy on Americans in Ghana, because America is one of the biggest investor on the gold mine in Ghana. So I went there as just like a student working in the embassy, but I was actually going to spy on Americans in there. But they didn't know I was a soldier. Only afterwards, when I left. So there is a lot of other lessons that I can use. I learned, because when I started, I was doing, I want to call radio communications. As an officer cadet, I was doing radio communications. So we set up the radios and the tents and all that whenever we go on a mission. And yeah, so lots of lessons learned there that I can use in business. Because I know how to, like in investment, when we're sitting in investment, one day I was sitting in investment with this Jewish guy. Jewish guys, they are real business people. And I always have two support teams when I'm going for investment meetings or conferences out of the country. And one of my guys, he was there, he left the room because he thought we're fighting. We're not fighting. I like to give that hard time. And I understand I understand certain lessons that you can never learn from school. Because like you say, you want to destroy a bigger army, if you're a smaller army, how do you do that? And then with the army, you plan to the end. You plan everything to the end before you implement time, everything. And by the way, in the army, you can't be late. And of course, in intelligence, you have to be on time. You can't be early, you can't be late. And there's a reason why, because they don't want people to remember you. They want you to remember them. But in the army, you have to be early. You have to be early.
Yeah. Fast forward a bit, you came to Cape Town in 2008. So could you walk us through that early journey of, firstly, what was that like to come into the country without knowing anyone, without much in terms of material value? What early jobs did you have to do to actually make it up?
Make it up. So one of the biggest inspiration was that when a soldier always remained a soldier. So they were not allowing us, because we know too much, allowing us to leave the army. So I had to apply to go to school. So it was just an excuse to leave the army. And what really pushed me is two things. Number one is that I was simultaneously, as I was in the army, I was also doing music and choral music. And we went to, I remember, to Guyana. Guyana is a small city in Limpopo. And the choir won, I think we were number 2 in the large category, we were number 2 in the choir. But there was also a program whereby you do the opera, so you sing like solo. And I won as well. It was also a second position, so I won about 8,000 rand. Old Mitchell is the biggest sponsor of that program. And I was the youngest, and my choir chairperson, he said to me, we're gonna help you because we understand your situation, we're gonna keep, because Zimbabwe was going down, the inflation, we're using better checks and all that. So it was tough for most of us. And all I wanted was to buy, we're banning CDs. I wanted to buy a desktop so I can ban CDs to make some money and all that. And so they lied to me, they couldn't help me. So that was one. The second part was that going back to Zimbabwe was not going to work out because inflation was too bad. And then it was at that time of the elections as well. And it was just a whole mess. So my friends, my father's friend inspired me and said, okay, you can go to Cape Town. My son lives in Cape Town. So that's how I came to Cape Town. And he let me down, so didn't have a place to stay. Met strangers, 2 ladies that playing tennis, took me to Stellenbosch Lodge. That's how I really started, and I went to church, got opportunity to work. I know Stellenbosch at the back of the palm of my hand. I know the streets in the Idas Valley. I was working in the people's gardens. I was painting. I was doing plumbing. Then I was helping also with electrical works and jobs. Later on, working in a car wash in Idas Valley. Idas Valley has maintenance. I learned a lot about cars. Anything that pays money. Actually, I've learned, I can fix my own car in most, unless if it's a really major thing. And and then that's how I started. And then later on, because of the experience in the car wash, inspired me to start my own car wash. Before I got that space at 81 Bay Street, when I left in the Iders Valley, I was using a bicycle. So a student from Netherlands, his name was Austin as well, from Netherlands, he said, I'm leaving, I'm gonna throw this bike away. I said, no, give it to me. So he gave me the bike, but I used the bike not just for exercising. I one morning I woke, I didn't have a job. So I woke up one morning and I just wrote, no more waiting queues, no more waiting lists, service at your doorstep.
Could you repeat
That's what it no more waiting queues, no more waiting lists, service at your doorstep. And this is not a joke, this is serious. You know what I did? I bought Sunlight Liquid, the one you bought in a plastic. Not in a plastic bottle, but in an actual plastic. Like pouch. And then I put that in the car wash bottle. I threw that in the car wash bottle. So now I knew that, okay, I only had 70 rand to invest in. Took an old sponge. So I go to people's houses. So I use their water and I use their electricity to vacuum the cars. So I did that for almost, it was not really sustainable, it's labor intensive because you waste time, so much time sometimes 30 minutes to cycle to the next client. But that investment that I raised from there, I raised about 12,000 Rand. I invested that 12,000 Rand, I rented a car wash for 3 months. Deposit for 3 months, that's how I started. The car wash business was good because it was labor intensive, but I was making good money. I was making 45,000 Rand of 12, almost was 2000 and, 10, almost 12, 13 years ago was good money. Maybe to the value of 100,000 of today. So it was, not bad for a startup, you know. So I was doing well, but I was also messing up because I was drinking a lot. I used to get drunk, I was drinking a lot. So that pushed me to start a car wash, and from the car wash, I then invested in my sister's business, which was, I was also emotional and angry because I thought maybe I'll get a space in Stellenbosch for another car wash, but I couldn't get space because I couldn't renew. So that was also emotional. It was not rational for me investing in a business, but then I lost again, all the money I lost again. From the more than R1 million I lost. But then, I took like an 18 months break, work as a driver for her. Then I came back to Stellenbosch, and then because I also love to help in the community, so I was quite involved in the community projects, from after school program to music and so forth. And then from there I get to know people. I register my NGO, and register my NGO in my first company.
Okay,
yeah.
So let's go to that first company. So after you're doing all these jobs, you're starting all these businesses, you're getting experience, you're making some money, but then you're using your money, and now what's the next step? What is going through your mind to be like, this is actually what I'm going to do next? What was the problem that you were solving?
Okay, so before you solve the problem, as I say, the army helped me to plan to the end. Okay, so if I invest, whether I invest $1 billion or $1 million or 5 Rand, doesn't matter. Even if I lose that money, I'm not going to lose the vision. So I had a paper, and for me, a vision is a mental picture of who you want to become. So I always have that purpose, that vision in mind, despite any challenge. Doesn't matter. Yesterday I was very sick, I couldn't walk. But I said, doesn't matter, I will be in Stellenbosch today. So that did help me. So losing money was not, so there are things that people cannot take away from you. So the skills that you develop, that's why it's the most important advice I give to anybody is invest in yourself. Because nobody can take that knowledge that you're gonna gain from investing yourself. So I never lose the purpose or the vision of why I started the business and why it's important to solve problems. In terms of solving problems, my car wash as a first business in South Africa did help because I employ 6 people as a startup, which is not bad. And also 6 people is 6 families. So in a family of, let's say 5 times 6, that's about 30 people that I was helping, including myself. And I was contributing because we pay our taxes and stuff, was contributing to the economy. So problem solving is key. So I don't believe in, I don't worry about challenges. I love challenges because challenges are good because the more challenges we have, the more opportunities we have to create. Whenever there's a challenge, if this light is off, there must be a solution to it. And that's why we need to create solutions, not just to make money, but also to build economic development and to build the Africa that we want, because nobody's going to come and rescue us. We have to build the Africa, that we want.
And in terms of the NGO that you started, what was the NGO and what was the company that you eventually started after driving for your sister?
So I started the company, the African Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center, a few years ago, and now I'm saying a few years ago, but it's more than a decade ago. The NGO used to be called Imnambo. Imnambo is a Xhosa name, meaning grassroots level. I don't believe in top-down approach. I believe in bottom-up approach, meaning that as long as we don't address the issues that the grassroots level are facing. If you look at Kayamandi, Ida's Valley is getting better now. Krugisville, all these Dorpies, for example, in Stellenbosch, Flottenberg, and Southwold, Jamestown, that people are facing in these communities. We can build our nice houses and flats, but they're still gonna come and steal from us because we are not addressing the real issues that we face. So the name of the NGO was called Imnambo, meaning grassroots, so that we have to start from the grassroots level. And that was inspired by my working in the community. And that's when the idea emanated from there. And also using, young people don't want to be in agriculture anymore because they believe it's a daily job, but agriculture is good because it does not just help you as therapeutic, but it helps you to feed the nation, to feed your family, but also there's more opportunities within the agriculture sector if you look at that value chain. So part of the activities that we're doing, we're teaching people how to do community gardens. So that's how I started. But the whole idea was to develop from the grassroots level.
Okay, and could you tell me about how that evolved and how you actually grew that business?
So initially I was involved in, I know people don't like politics either myself, but I was quite involved because what also helps me in Stellenbosch is that Stellenbosch is very tough as an entrepreneur because there are semiotics science made to destruction. As you see, one of the areas, you just told me about the new development next year, where it's going to be, if I want to invest in. And one of the things that is happening in Stellenbosch is like the Jewish state. So what they do is like, they tell you we like you, but the system tells you we don't like you. So what they're doing in Ida's Valley, they go at the surrounding Ida's Valley, they buy those places, and they develop them, and then they make the rates and tax expensive in a way that you can't afford, so you remove yourself. Look at what happened in Krugisville, Valkefonen at the back, and all that. Look what's happening in Kayamandi. So that's what they're doing. So you find out that most people that were born in Stellenbosch, they can't afford to live in Stellenbosch. They are now moving to Somerset West Strand. They're now moving to Clapmans. So I understood those dynamics by being in Stellenbosch. So that also did help me. So number one, understanding the problem that you're solving. Understanding the vision and the purpose. What is the vision and the purpose? You have to be clear on your goals. And young people don't realize this. Most startups that I know, they are one-man show. Number two, they don't want to grow. They're okay. As long as they can make some money, have a nice car, they're fine. So you need to understand which problems that you are solving, have clear goals. They have to be so clear that you know, okay, how much money you want to make, who do you want to be, how do you want to make your money, and how do you want to solve the problems. So it has to be clear. So for me, what I do to scale my business is that I kind of like reinvest, in most cases, even today, 70% of what I generate, I reinvest in business. I'm not worried about, I drive very good vehicles, but I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about cars. I don't mind using a train to town, as long as I'm gonna be in time for my meetings and so forth. But investing, never lose focus in terms of the bigger vision, and have clear goals. It's very, very important. And it doesn't matter where you are in your life at this stage of this life. You may have lost everything. It's always about your next move. That's why a chess player, an amateur knows how to, the next 3 moves. An amateur. But a grandmaster knows up to 15 moves. So, and I look at life, of course I'm a very positive person, but I always look at life from the worst case scenario. Let's say everything fails, what would be my strategy? So I have an answer for that. but always reinvest back, have a bigger purpose. And like nowadays talk about ESG, looking at your environmental what is the environmental impact that your business is solving, your social impact. Of course, because this life is not just about you, it's about your community, your nation, your fellow men, and as well as the continent. And of course, your governance and compliance is very, very important. Because if we don't address the issue of social impact, that's why Thabo Mbeki was one of the best presidents of South Africa. He said, if we don't help our neighbors, talking about Swaziland and Zimbabwe and Mozambique, our neighbors will come and ask for salt from us. They will come to us. They will come and invade. That's why you see so many, neighboring countries here in South Africa. So I believe that you need to be able to address those things. And by addressing and trying to help and lift others, you're going to be more successful and solve more problems. And your business will grow because we call it, they say your network is your net worth, meaning that there are things that you don't have to spend money. So like now, whenever I go somewhere, I look at, okay, what can we do to work to collaborate? What can we do to develop and to grow? Because, okay, we have done this. There was, Helen Zille, when she was the premier, one day, it was 2014, she was giving, she did an announcement to say, I think they created some 50-something thousand jobs that year. And there was the ANC guy in the room, we at a dinner in Stanton, and said, no, but that's less, it's not a lot of. And I said to myself, the question is not about less jobs. The question is that she and her cabinet and her team, and whoever was working with her, had created 50,000. How do we create 100,000? How do we work together to create more?
Tell me about how you transitioned and co-founded Africa Rising TV, and what are the services that you guys offer?
So there's a saying, I always say this, I think I've done a couple of podcasts on that as well, that everybody looks at the final product of an entrepreneur, the nice vehicles, the White House instead of and all that, but they never talk about the challenges, the rejection, the no banking account, no money in the bank account. So what happened is that going through I was doing so much well before COVID. And so COVID, I had a knockdown. And because there were a few things that I had to learn and to improve. I don't think I was a good CEO. I think I was a bad CEO, meaning that I did not understand systems. I'm kind of like an old school style. So that I had to pay the price. That's number one. I also had a larger team, which was not, up to 93 people. And of course, for me, it was more about empowering others and something, but I made a mistake because I was supposed to have a very smaller team that was loyal. So I had betrayals, I lost money, and I had a couple of challenges and some of them I blame myself because I did not put a proper measures and log systems in place. So last year, I came from, I think it was the AFCFTA Business Forum at the Convention Center. And I went to Greenpoint, to the office that I was using last year. I went to Greenpoint, I'm sitting and I said, there's a meeting. So this guy, I will fight with him, he's a creative artist. So they don't make appointments, they just say now. And I said, look, I don't work like that. Then I can't just say, no, I want to introduce you to somebody. It was last year. Somebody, and she's working with us on creative exchange programs. I love media, but because I've done some media before, but not as a business. For me, it's like a hobby. It's like a hobby for me. So he introduced me. His name is Tyrese. He introduced me to Yaina, my current partner now in business in this Africa Rising. And so with Yaina, we used to speak a lot, and I encouraged her to join most of our programs virtually because she couldn't travel to South Africa to join our program virtually. Then I think it was around about August or September, I can't remember the actual dates. And one of my colleagues is more senior to me, he lives in America. And he said to me, Oliver, there's this meeting you were supposed to come. It's alongside the UN meeting. I know you said you can't make it, it's last minute, but I'm willing to go represent you. Just tell me, send me some money, tell me, and I'm willing to go and represent you. And then when he came back, he said, look, I know this company. It's a French company. It's called Amagi TV. And the founders are from India. It's quite big. You can Google them. Here's the link. But they're looking for someone who can assist them across Africa to onboard public channels because they provide clouding system, they help with fast OTT, how to monetize and all that. And they also have a meeting in Netherlands, and I couldn't go to Netherlands because I was going through some stuff. And so because Yaina, she has become like a friend, we communicate not just on business but on personal issues and stuff. We help each other out. And she said she's going to Netherlands to an event. I said, this event looks like the event that I'm supposed to be. I said, do you want to represent me at Amagi TV as one of my partners? She said, okay, what must I do? So I gave her everything. So she went to represent us at Amagi TV, and then after that we signed a contract with Amagi TV representing Africa. And she said, but I always wanted to, I always wanted to have a digital TV channel. And can we set up a TV channel? Can Amagi help us and all that? So that's how it was born. And then we said, okay, let's do it. So it was almost closer to end of last year. That's how we started Africa Rising. But what is the vision of Africa Rising? The vision of Africa Rising is that we want, you remember, if you look at the Caribbean, like if you look at Guyana, Suriname, part of it was colonized by the Dutch. And early last year, they invested, I think, 200 million euros for the creative sector. And we can turn the creative sector into business. We can help creative sector. South Africa alone has got billions of rands earmarked for the creative sector. But we always see creative sector as like, it's a hobby, like music, podcasting, for example. Why can't we invest in this podcast and help more startups with education, creating more awareness about tools that can help them build their businesses? So Africa Rising is a game changer because we are saying that let's harness our ideas and take them to the globe. Let's onboard, let's help, because we're going to have a training and development aspect to it. Like, doesn't matter you are a videographer, doesn't matter you're a musician and so forth. We are going to create a platform for you where you don't have to spend a lot of money to be in the industry. And of course, also African content. I love tourism because tourism covers finance, covers agriculture, covers hospitality industry, covers music. Like, remember the ex-CEO of the Stellenbosch 360 that was closed in 2019, Anna Marie Fens. We're talking about dining with the locals. People don't want to go and live in five-star hotels anymore. 5-star hotels, sometimes you're in the 20th floor and you have to call midnight. Can I please have some coffee? I don't want that. I want to make myself coffee. I want to go and eat porchicos in Idas Valley. And so we want to showcasing our tourism, our tradition, our culture, and respect that, but also showcasing, I think, the potential that you speak in your profile. And I respect that, in that there's a lot of potential that Africa has to offer. The reason why we got $60 billion for this Salona Bay project is because that most of the investors, the Malta investors, for example, the investors in Europe, Singapore, all over the world, there is no major development across the world except Africa, because Africa is developing. Our rail infrastructure, our smart cities, our bridges, internet broadband, all this development that is happening that requires big financing. And most of these companies, they have interest in Africa because they know that that's where the money is for the next 20 years. Yeah, so for us, we want to showcase that. We want to showcase Africa, and we want to take African ideas to the globe, and we want to compete globally. The other thing that we need to do to develop as a continent is to unite. And I think that's what we can learn from the past pandemic, COVID-19. Most people can do well when there's no pandemics. And as an entrepreneur, there are so many pandemics that can come, and you need to prepare for that.
Okay, let's speak about those challenges on the continent. So being in the ecosystem for over 15 years now, how has the ecosystem improved over the years in terms of startups solving problems and investors coming into the continent? What is your experience like?
First of all, I say thank you to COVID, because COVID taught us that the human spirit is quite stronger. But it also taught us to have critical thinking, but also to collaborate. If you look at the last goal of the Millennium Development Goals, I think it's goal 18, it talks about meaningful partnerships. So during COVID, I met so many Africans. I've traveled Africa, almost most of the countries I've traveled, except North Africa, I haven't done much. And I've met so many Africans during COVID, virtually, than I did when I was traveling in Africa. So critical thinking, that's number one. Number two is that we need to unite. Because South Africa we are 60 million people, we're too small to compete with China, Brazil, US, or UK. We're too small. Nigeria, 200 million people, okay, you are the biggest in the continent, but you're too small.
So what does uniting look like for you?
Uniting look like for that's why the media is a major role to play. Uniting is that, for example, South Africa is closing its refineries. Okay, we have a better reputation in the business world in terms of business trust. Nigeria don't have. Nigeria have a bad. There's a bad perception across the world because people see Nigeria as not as an opportunity that they can do business in Nigeria, but they see it as higher corruption, which, I mean, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. But for example, Nigeria is quite big on, Dangote refinery just been opened last year. There's lots of oil. So, but Nigeria, for example, could collaborate with South Africa. South Africa is closing most of its refineries. Of course, part of the $60 billion is for the Kruger refinery, which we have partnered with the team there to revive that refinery. But Nigeria could, for example, collaborate on the refinery of adding value to the oil and gas and liquid petroleum products that they are producing, and then sell them as value-added products from South Africa, but South Africa has got more. So South Africa could work on that. Uniting meaning that we have to work together, we have to trade among each other. I don't agree with politicians, but there's one thing I agree with Malema. He said, open the borders. Let's open our borders, let's work together. And South Africa had an opportunity to play a major role on the continent because the rand and the dollar, the rand is being used mostly in almost most of the countries in Africa as a medium exchange finance, because most of money on the continent it's not valuable. But we missed that opportunity as a country. And we also had an opportunity to be a leader. We joined BRICS, for example. The reason why we joined BRICS, because we can't compete with any of those countries, because we're too small. But the reason why we joined BRICS, this is public knowledge, was that we wanted to be the leading giant. We wanted to represent the continent of Africa, which we are not doing. So uniting for me is that meaning that we do business together. I welcome the Africa Free Trade Area opportunity. I know they just announced a few days ago that they're extending the 4-year term for His Excellency of Kelemene, but I think they are doing less in terms of the actual implementation, and I think we need to collaborate with them from the Pan-African investment part of it, but also we need to find out how do we make sure that the startups community, the up-and-coming entrepreneurs have the knowledge, have the information on the opportunities that are there. Because I think they were saying last year to trade with the FCFTA, you must have invested $80,000. That's a lot of money for an African startup. So we need those things to be addressed. We need policies that are conducive for businesses, for Unity to thrive. But FCFTA is an opportunity for us to do that, to unite the continent, to do business together.
And you spoke about the Saldanha refinery project. Could you give a background on what the project is and how beneficial that is to the economy?
Yeah, so the Saldanha Mixed Development Project itself, it's part of the Inditex projects. I was invited to look into the finance aspect of things, which means bringing finance. Part of my job today is investment facilitation, mostly for large projects. So we've done quite a lot. Last year we have approved a couple of projects in Mozambique. People think I have the money myself. I don't have the actual money myself. I'm just an investment facilitator, so I work with financiers across the world. And the project is a mixed development project, so once it's done, it will be more of a smart city. In terms of jobs, we look at about 300,000 jobs over 8 years project. Because of the new technologies, we may take up to 6 years if everything goes a bit faster. It's so Saldanha Bay as well as Kruger, there's going to be refineries, it's going to be aquaponics, marine, hospitals. It's part of the international law in terms of having energy projects. You're required to develop 20% of what you produce needs to benefit that community. But I'm happy about that. I'm involved in this. I never thought I would be involved in this. I think the biggest investment we ever approved in the history of South Africa. And for me, even though we're still looking for more $8 billion, and for me, it's humbling to know that, I mean, I was part of this and I'm part of this, and it's going to create much more needed jobs. And the good thing also, it's going to address the issue of energy, because I mean, people love solar. I know our premier loves solar. He was speaking last night. I was watching him. They love solar, but the problem with solar, the solar is good for short-term solution. The problem with solar is that what are you going to do with the batteries? So the government, the city of Cape Town, city of Stellenbosch, city of Joburg, we're going to get stuck. Some batteries, the lifespan is just 2 years, some 5 years, some 10 years, if they are the longest. But you're going to have environmental issues long term. So I say, okay, the biggest challenge we're facing as a continent and as a country is baseload power, is the power that can be used for industries, for value addition. And that's the biggest challenge. So we're also going to have solar there, but we're also going to have, solar is just going to be a backup, and gas, just a backup while we're still building. And of course, we're going to also utilize the hospitals, the marine, all the infrastructure that we're going to have to generate power using that. But the long term is, of course, is going to be the nuclear energy. And what we need is multi-purpose generation. So multi-purpose grid. Because one of the challenges that the grid that we have, they are quite old and cannot take the different renewables. We need to work with companies such as Siemens that have the technology to develop private multi-purpose grids that can be able to take solar, nuclear reactors, the different energy solution to this. Because now, for example, Cape Town or Stellenbosch, we're getting more people, and we need more energy solution. Because without energy, we can't have data, we can't have internet, and we can't work, and we can't do value addition. So I'm happy about that, and it's going to create the much needed jobs, and of course the economic development. And we can use the same model. So we're getting the same model in Swaziland, in Mozambique, in any country across Africa, and we can use this as a prototype. By the way, we already have a partnership with a company in Mozambique. Of course, Mozambique will require a little bit more budget in terms of, because there is security challenges because of the South African challenge in Mozambique. But yes, so I'm excited about that project.